a contributor to the C++ working group, a long time and extraordinarily prolific contributor to the C++ standards organization working group, has been banned from that organization because, and I'm not joking here, this is real and it's crazy, he used the word question in the title of a paper submitted to that working group. That literally is the entire reason for him being banned. He used the word question. Yeah, question. 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 The standard English word that we all use several times a day. He used it in a title for a technical paper, and so he was banned. This is crazy. I'm going to read a little bit from this submission to Slashdot of all places. What was the last time I read Slashdot? It's crazy. And then we're going to go from there and dive really deep into this because it's nuts. Andrew Tomazos, a longtime contributor to the ISO C++ Standards Committee, known as WG21, recently published a technical paper called The Undefined Behavior Question. The paper explores the semantics of undefined behavior in C++ and examines this topic in the context of related research. However, controversy arose regarding the paper's title. Some critics pointed out similarities between the title of this paper and Karl Marx's 1844 essay on the Jewish question, as well as the historical implications of the Jewish question, a term associated with debates and events leading up to World War II. This led to accusations that the title was historically insensitive. I'm going to stop right there for a second before we continue here. The original title for Karl Marx's essay on the Jewish question was Der Judenfrage. That is what it was called. Now, if this particular C++ standards organization contributor had written an article that somehow played off Der Judenfrage, okay, maybe. But he simply used the word question, which was never in the original essay by Karl Marx because it wasn't written in English. I'm just going to point that out. Also, secondarily, I don't know any group of people that uses the word question more often than Jews. I'm Jewish. I have never heard, not once, not one time, never, another Jewish person go, oh, he used the word question? Oh, we must censor him. No Jew is ever going to say that. Guaranteed, 100% guarantee, whoever at the working group is discussing this is not Jewish. Guaranteed. 100% guaranteed. Absolutely no doubt. Because of all the Jews I know, and I know a lot of Jews, no one has ever raised a concern about the word question, because the word question is a pretty commonly used word. That would be ridiculous to assume that every usage of the word question, even in the title of the paper, even if the word is at the end of the title, is somehow anti-Semitic. No, that's ridiculous. That's insane. I continue with this particular quote I'm reading here. In response to requests to change the title, Mr. Tomazos declined, stating that, quote, we cannot allow such an important word as question to become a form of hate speech, end quote. Yes, doy. That is crazy obvious. He argued that the term was used in its plain technical sense and had no connection to the historical context cited by critics. Well, that seemed obvious to me. I literally would, reading the essay, I would have, that he wrote, the paper he wrote, I would have never made some sort of weird connection to Karl Marx. It's just not in there. Following this decision, Mr. Tomazos was expelled from the C++ Standards Foundation, and his membership in the ISO WG21 Working Group 21 C++ Standards Committee was revoked. Okay. And then it continued from there. This story then got posted to Reddit, to the C++ Reddit, where it was promptly censored. They locked the thread and began just locking everything down so people couldn't talk about it. People appealed and said, please, moderators, this is an important issue. A long-term contributor just got banned for saying the word question from the C++ working group. This seems like something we in the C++ Reddit should talk about. They're not having it. They're like, no, you can't discuss this. Then people posted the same story over on Hacker News, and Hacker News promptly flagged it and hid it because they did not want anyone to talk about this long-time prolific contributor to the C++ standard getting banned because he used the word question. Because people were like, why? This is very bizarre. This doesn't make any sense at all. But Hacker News and Reddit do not want you knowing about this. That's weird. That's strange. That just makes the whole story even weirder. So the committee here, the C++ Standards Committee, is part of the International Organization for Standardizations, the ISO committee. And ISO's C++ committee is called Working Group 21. It was officially formed back in 1990 and 1991. Now, Andrew Tomazos is rather prolific in this regard. If you go to his website at tomazos.com, you can find his list of C++ proposals, such as proposal wording for bitfield default member initializer syntax, and proposal for file literals, and up to expression issues, and fixed string a complete time string, and just on and on. Proposal of multi-declarators. And it's dozens, and it's dozens of papers that you can read through, and they're all right there, and they're all extremely dry. they're all very technical, and as hard as I looked, I couldn't find a single thing that was political, that was discriminatory, that even mentioned Jews or Germans or anything. Like, it's just about C++. It's just nonstop C++. The guy clearly eats and breathes C++, right? So I went and read the paper in question, the Undefined Behavior Question, which was published back in August 18th of this year by Andrew Tomazos. The Undefined Behavior Question, the primary language design decision on the related proposals WG-P1494, etc., can be summarized by posting the Undefined Behavior Question, which is as follows. Should undefined operations be allowed to affect observable operations that happen before them? The question can be answered either as yes, no, or it depends on X, Y, and it's just a technical discussion of the topic. There's nothing here. Watch this. Let's do a find. Jew. Nope, 0 results. Uden. Nope, 0 results. Nope, no communism. How about Marx? Does Marx see nothing in here? Not only does it not mention it, it doesn't even seem to allude to anything that could be offensive unless you find C++ offensive. I know all you Rust lovers out there are very offended at the number of times I've said C++ and your head's about to explode. But outside of all the Rust lovers, there's just nothing to be upset about in here. I even decided, you know what, maybe I'm just not seeing the connection. So I went and read an English translation of Der Judenfrage by Karl Marx, written in 1844. So his On the Jewish Question, which is the English retitling of Der Judenfrage. I started reading through it, and while it is a load of garbage and is a hot piece of awfulness, I couldn't find any connection between what Karl Marx wrote and what Tomas wrote. Or Andrew Tomazos. I couldn't find any connection there. So I did some more looking around, and Andrew Tomazos did make a statement. Over on one Reddit post, he made a little bit of a statement trying to address some of his critics. Some critics were saying, "Oh, this article was nothing but a ChatGPT output, and therefore it's bad." Well, it turns out it wasn't. That was just some random anonymous person on Reddit saying that his article was written by ChatGPT. No one had any proof of that. Just one random anonymous Reddit guy. And let's be honest, anonymous Reddit guy is about the least reliable source on planet Earth. Just, you never trust anything anonymous Reddit guy says. If they don't put their real name on it and it's not a verifiable individual, you don't trust it when it comes to Reddit. People just spout nonsense there. He also goes into discussing some of the criticisms that other anonymous Reddit guys posted that said that this particular paper was not the issue, that this was just the straw that broke the camel's back because this particular gentleman had so many issues. Okay, so I did some looking into that, and then I read this statement. I'm going to read this statement from Andrew here to you now. Quote, As for the paper title being the straw that broke the camel's back, I don't think there is any evidence of that either. This was an isolated incident. Some people took offense at the title of the paper, The Undefined Behavior Question, as alluding to the Jewish question, and lodged a complaint. In the end, I was given an ultimatum to change the paper title or get kicked out. If I had have decided to change the paper title, I would not have been kicked out. I have never received a complaint even vaguely similar to this one. So I suspect that these same complaints would have been lodged against anyone submitting a paper titled The Undefined Behavior Question, and eventually that paper author would have been given the same ultimatum. Okay, I don't have any reason to not believe that, and looking at what information is available, that does seem to be the case. He goes on to say, this is precisely why I was morally obligated to take the stand I did on this matter. It might surprise you to learn I harbor no ill will towards those that made the complaints, and once I realized they were serious, I took them seriously, and even initially considered changing the paper title. By painting the pictures, and he goes on to talk about them, and but so he thought about changing it, but ultimately decided no, he wasn't going to, because it's the word question, and we need to not redefine the word question to be hate speech, and we shouldn't be kicking out technical contributors and programmers and standards people from projects because they use a technical word that's been a word for friggin' ever. we can't do that. And what's really baffling about this is it is yet another of an almost constant onslaught of technical contributors being banned from programming projects, either programming standards organizations, programming language organizations themselves and foundations, or just deeply technical projects. They're just getting banned one after another for the weirdest and most simplest things. Case in point, a Python contributor, a longtime Python contributor, was banned from it being part of the Python organization for several months. He was on a long-term suspension because he mentioned that he found Saturday Night Live funny back during the 1970s. That was it. He found it funny during a time when a sketch was aired. That's all he said. And he got banned. Peculiar. Now, of course, that particular person was also a bit of a squeaky wheel. He spoke his mind. From everything I could find, this particular contributor spoke his mind very reasonably. He didn't go on long swearing tirades. He wasn't abusive towards anyone. He was very straightforward. But he was banned for saying something very simple, something that was far less offensive than what most people on the various code of conduct and whatnot committees themselves say publicly. This similar thing is happening over on the Linux kernel. We've been following the story of how one of the primary developer of a file system called bcachefs is being banned from the Linux kernel, at least temporarily, and his contributions being rejected simply because he didn't apologize hard enough to someone after getting into a little verbal tete-a-tete with them on our Linux kernel mailing list. Now, it doesn't really matter that the little verbal sparring that occurred was far less insulting and far less problematic and far less every negative word you can think of than stuff that Linus Torvalds himself says on Days That End with Y. But it doesn't really matter because someone had an axe to grind against this particular developer, so they ground that axe and they used the codes of conduct and working groups and various moderation and censorship things in order to make that happen. This sort of thing is happening in technical projects with great regularity, and to see it happening here on the C++ standards committee is extraordinarily bizarre. I mean, this is weird. This is very weird. I've reached out to individuals on the Working Group 21. They haven't gotten back to me yet. Based on all the information we have, this does seem like a real thing. This seems like a thing that definitely happened. And that is terribly sad to see this sort of thing happen. We're talking about them banning someone who's been a member of their working group for over a decade with dozens of published papers or technical papers around the design and ratification of various editions of C++. I mean, this is a core person. And they're banning them because they put the word question in the title of a technical paper. That's insane. There's so many different things that are insane about this. It's absolutely crazy. And I'm for one thing, I'm really proud of Andrew Tomazos for standing his ground on this. He said, "No, I'm not going to remove the word question. What? We're not going to start. We're going to start declaring that important and critically used English words are hate speech now." I mean, that's insane. That's insane to think that. And I want to repeat something here because this is critically important. There is zero chance that anyone who is Jewish did this, because I've never heard a Jewish person, an actually Jewish person, someone who actually goes to synagogue, right, say, "Oh gosh, you can't use the word question because Karl Marx once said the word question, and so you can never use it. Also, you can never speak German, and you can never use the word Jew because Karl Marx said the word Jew, well, the German equivalent, right? That's insane. You can't just start going around doing that, and no Jewish person would say that. So guarantee this was a non-Jewish person banning someone for saying the word question under the pretense that somehow the word question is anti-Jewish, which it's not. It's insane. It's crazy. And clearly, this was simply a pretext for getting rid of Andrew Tomazos. Someone doesn't want Andrew Tomazos in that organization. Someone doesn't, right? That's what it tells me. Until I hear some information that suggests otherwise, I'm kind of going to operate under that assumption because none of the rest of it makes sense. It's so absurd. It's so absurd to ban someone for the usage of the word question in a technical paper that asks a question. I mean, the word question is right in the title of this episode from the Lunduke Journal. Am I going to be now banned from somewhere because I used the word question while asking a question? I just asked a question. Are question marks banned now? This is insane. This is nuts. But it continues to happen. Just once, I'd like to wake up on Monday morning and go, no craziness in the world of computer science this week, right? No, nothing absolutely bonkers is happening. Crazy people aren't banning people, long-term technical contributors and programmers for asinine reasons this week. Just once I'd like to wake up to that, because it's happening in spades every friggin' week. It's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. Thank you to the Lunduke Journal contributors and supporters. You make all of this possible. You make it possible for me to use words like question without getting censored by anyone, so I really appreciate that. Apparently, that's something I had to be on the lookout for. New information for me. So go to lunduke.com and click on things, subscribe to things. There's all sorts of ways you can support the Lunduke Journal over there, and you can watch the shows and listen to the shows and read the articles and giggle at the comics and the funny pictures. And it's all up over there, lunduke.com. You'll love it very much. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, nerds and nerdettes across the whole gosh darn inner tubes, I do declare, end broadcast.